Fantastic. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Client Acquisition and Scaling Facebook group. As always, we come together every single Monday to feed our minds and get motivated and get in the right mindset to really ramp up our businesses, scale, and just get things moving in a forward positive direction. Today, I'm super excited. We are going to talk to none other than Jennifer, who is not only an agency fast track student, but also part of what I call my ensemble of folks that really helps me get my world organized and done. So Jennifer has been with me in some capacity, been around me in some capacity for the better part of, I think, going on 8 years now. So I know her very well. What we're going to talk about today is even being around me, even having the struggles, everything that happens, it's still hard to kickstart your own business, to kickstart yourself, to get in the right mindset. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you here today. Could you just start, let's just kind of start by talking about kind of what you do in your business, your personal business, and then we'll kind of get into the job too, and we'll talk about that. But what do you do? What is it that you do specifically?
I am a writer. I write fiction and some nonfiction, and I am currently working on launching a publishing company to help other people get their things published. I've also done content, and I've been learning SEO for a while now too.
Nice. So content writer mostly,
mm-hmm.
And you won't toot your own horn, so I will. Also a best-selling author on Amazon. You write science fiction, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Big passion.
Yeah, I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, fantastic. So this is your passion. You want to be a writer, whether it be content and help SEOs and stand up a content system, but also it would be amazingly cool to keep doing your personal writing, correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. So you used to work a job, correct?
Yes. And I did not like it a whole lot. It was very soul sucking. I guess is a good word for it.
Yeah. So how long have you been in the workforce, would you say?
Really, as soon as I turned 18, and well, even before that, because we had a family store when I was a kid. So I think probably since I was 14, I've been working my little keister off, trying to get to where I want to be. And I just never could figure out how to make that final jump into actually doing it, into walking away and being able to trust myself to provide for my family without having to rely on someone else signing my paycheck.
Yeah. And it is a paycheck and it's finite, correct? Mm-hmm. You weren't in a bonus situation or anything like that, were you?
No.
So just so I can paint a picture, I know your story. You're one of the few people I'm going to do a hot seat with that I know a lot about. You really were one of the best at the company, weren't you?
Yeah. So not to brag. I was really good at what I did. And they took advantage of that a lot. And it got to the point where I didn't feel like they were valuing my worth. It was to the point where at one point I did walk away when I had my daughter, and 6 months after that, they were begging me to come back. And then when I finally did, pull the trigger and leave this last time, they had to hire 3 people to replace me. So, that tells me that I definitely was good at what I was doing. They just, they didn't see it as, they didn't know. I don't think they had a good perspective of everything I did, because I would tell them But they were just like, I don't know, it's not a big deal. We'll be fine without you. And then up until the final days of before I left, they were kind of going, oh no, what do we do now? Because they couldn't find anyone qualified to replace me. So
Yeah, it's funny how that works, that they beg you to come back. They knew how great you were. And I think really all you wanted, was it Fridays off, or wasn't there something you wanted that they just wouldn't relent to?
yeah, so when I came back after my daughter, when they begged me to come back, I said, all right, I'll come back, but I'm only going to work 4 days a week. I'll still work 40 hours, but I'm only going to work 4 days a week. And then with the whole COVID thing, stuff changed because we ended up being severely understaffed. But once we got to a point where it made sense for me to go back to my 4-day schedule, I asked them for it and they said no. And I asked a couple times and they just kept saying no. And I was like, you know what? I'm sacrificing time with my family. This isn't worth it to me anymore. So I was like, if I can do all of this work for you guys and you guys don't care enough to give me the one thing I negotiated when you asked me to come back last time, then I'm just not going to do it anymore. I can use this same motivation and what I learned from you to do this on my own. So.
And how old's your daughter now?
She's 4.
4.
Yeah.
So you went back after a 6-month being away. You've been there 4 years. You were getting your Fridays off. COVID hits. I remember those days because you were talking to me. They worked you. They didn't care. If someone had a problem, that's okay. They can have the time off, or they gave them the leeway. But because they knew you would relent, because you always did, and just say, okay, they felt like they could continue to take advantage of you. So tell me this, how did it feel when mentally you made the decision before you even told them? I'm sure there came a point where you mentally said, this is what I was going to do. How did that feel?
Yeah, I was talking to my husband and he saw how upset I was about how they were treating me and how they just kept taking more and more stuff away. That I just one day was like, I really just wish I could quit. And then we started looking at what that would take. And he was on board, which was a big deal. And, it just, once we figured out that this is what was going to happen, it was just like this huge weight off of my shoulders. And I felt so relieved, and like, it just, I can't describe it. It was indescribable because I felt like before I ended up giving 3 weeks notice because I knew it was going to be hard to replace me. And it just, I don't know. It was just like all of this stress and everything was just gone. And it's a really stressful job because when I had my daughter and I quit, I had actually had heart problems at the time. And then one of the reasons why I lost my extra day off later on was because another gal had a stroke. So like it was a stressful job. Like it was causing health problems with people. So just knowing that I wouldn't have to deal with that anymore was huge for me.
And probably took a lot of that stress that was causing so much anxiety, I would guess. I remember those days myself. So what'd you do? You sent him an email and said, I quit?
Well, first, my direct supervisor, I actually got along with her really well. So first I had a private call with her and she's like, okay, I kind of figured this was coming because she saw how everything played out between me and upper management and how the evidence that I'm a very like factual type person. So I presented evidence of saying, look, me having this day off is not going to affect business. It's not, I'm still going to be doing what you need me to do. It's not going to change anything for you guys. And they actually had turned around and threatened me at that point. So I had talked to her and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And she's like, okay, I kind of figured that was coming. Thanks for giving me a heads up. And then I sent the email off to upper management, and I think they were surprised that I actually wasn't going to stand for it anymore. The funny thing is now, though, they've all left the company too. So I think
you took the whole company down.
What's that?
You took the whole company down.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. They all kind of followed me a couple months later, and I was like, oh, oops. But
no, it's one of those things to where you dream about it, you think about it, but I'm sure there's a part of you that was also a little bit scared.
Yeah, definitely. I worried. I know that when I really set my mind to something, I know I'm capable of getting it done. I'm a hard worker. I've always been a hard worker, but I've never had to self-motivate before. I've always had someone telling me, this is when you start, this is when you stop. So the whole only relying on myself to tell myself what to do thing, it was intimidating for me. I didn't have a very good plan. So that's why I like the course, is because it tells you how to prioritize stuff. And that was big for me because I didn't know what to prioritize for my business. So that's been helpful a lot.
Nice. And guys, keep in mind too, as you're watching this, Jennifer is sick right now and still came on to do this. So if she sounds a little stuffed up, and but that's the big difference. Like you just said, that once you're in charge of your own world, making that transition of, I have to work these 8 hours because if I don't, I get fired, or if I don't, I get in trouble, to I have to work these 8 hours so I can have the life I've always dreamed of. Let's talk about that a little bit, because again, I know your story. And so you quit and they were shocked. And in fact, had you worked longer than you had intended, because they just struggled to find, enough people, not even just a person, enough people to replace you. But then you took off the summer, did you not?
I did.
For the most part, and said, you know what, I've worked my whole life. I'm gonna go do stuff. So what did you guys do?
We went camping a lot. We bought a camper, and we really just made the summer all about the family, which was nice because, as everybody knows, with COVID, that's been a mess. With the kids were out of school for a while. It was hard. Everybody was stressed. One of my husband's concerns about me quitting was that I would be working all the time and I wouldn't have the freedom to do stuff like this. And we had sat down and talked about it before I actually quit. And one of the things is that one of the driving forces that really helped push this was that the freedom thing. Like, I was working just to get the bills paid, it was like the bare minimum. We weren't actually like living, we weren't getting to do the things that we wanted to do. It was either what's that?
Before you quit.
Yeah, before I quit, work was either holding us back because I couldn't get the time off, or because when the weekend finally got here, there was just nothing left of me to give to my family. So being able to walk away from all of that and say, look, to my family, I'm here for you now, 100%. We spent the whole summer. We went to all of these different campgrounds. We got to do some sports with the kids that they've been wanting to do. A lot of stuff. We got to spend time with my parents. We went on camping trips with them too. So it was a lot of fun to be able to just take a step back and breathe. And then the nice thing is that I could take my laptop, and then while the kids were running around for a minute, I could sit down and answer emails or whatever real quick and be on with my day. It'd take me just a couple minutes, and then is back to fun time. And now that they're back in school, I have more time to focus on my business. So that's actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah, but when they get off of school, you can now stop working.
Yeah.
And totally focus on them.
So one of the reasons I wanted to only work for 4 days is because here they actually only go to school 4 days a week. So it's nice to have those 3-day weekends. So even if, they're out of school for the week and we want to go on a weekend trip somewhere, we can. We're not limited to just, Saturday and Sunday. And then I have to stop and mentally prepare myself on Sunday to go back to the grind on Monday. I can actually relax and enjoy my time with my family now. So that's been huge for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm friends with Jennifer on Facebook, so I see all of the great photos, and it really warms my heart to see you doing all those great things and having fun and that stuff. So it's nice to see. Now, speaking of, your camper and doing all this fun stuff, let's talk about that a minute. Your husband wasn't an easy sell on you owning your own business, was he?
No, and I think it's just because a lot of it was that he likes to see, he's used to the idea of you work these hours and then you get paid right away for that time, within a week or two or whatever. The idea of working to build something that's going to pay you back in the future, not necessarily right now, I think was something we struggled with, because that doesn't help the bills that we have now. So that was a big concern of his. But
how did you deal with that? I know over the past few years, he has gotten on board. And what did you do to help him see the future? And I know the answer to this, but was it literally, showing him what life could be like? And of course, now you're realizing that. But what was it like getting him on board in the first place? Because I know we have folks out there watching and listening to where their spouses aren't on board, and they could definitely, use some advice if you had any.
It was a challenge. There were some weeks were better than others. At one point, it got to the point where we just didn't even talk about it. I just put my head down and worked basically when he wasn't looking for a while to help build stuff up. But, eventually he started to understand what I was saying about the freedom and, working, I guess, working to live, not living to work type thing. And I think now he understands more. We both are in the same place now about figuring out that this is when we want to be out running around. And I mean, we could continue to work like crazy now with the goal of some date in the future when we retire, then we'll be able to have fun. But we really wanted to do it now when the kids were young. Not that we're retired, but it gives us the flexibility to do that now.
Well, and that's the cool thing, though, having the ability in the middle of the week to do what you want to do, or having the ability when, for example, in the summer, your kids are off all summer. And so you guys got in a camper, went on the road, so to speak, but you knew you could still work while having that adventure. I've realized the same dream, that, and it's really awesome to have a life where you decide. And I think something we should probably focus on is that discipline, because I think that was something I never struggled with. I've always been self-disciplined. I was able to get stuff done. That part I never struggled with, but I know a lot of people do. So what do you think and I know you've been through our program, but if you guys don't know, Jennifer's been through Agency Fast Track. What do you think was the biggest thing that helped you, have that discipline? Was there one aspect or something you can think of?
So one of my biggest problems is I would either go full bore, get all the things done really well, or I would do nothing. And that was, I'd get to the point where I would say, okay, I've got all these things. Bang, bang, bang. They're all done. And then the next week I'd be like, okay, well, I can just wait a little bit on that, and I'd push it back and I procrastinate a little because in my mind, it wasn't as big of a priority as maybe something else. And then after a while, all these things build up over here in the not a priority land. And I would just get frozen because there would be so much and I didn't know what to do first. And so, being able to learn how to prioritize things was a huge thing for me. And also knowing that it's okay to outsource stuff. Like that hadn't even occurred to me for some reason, that it's okay to give things to other people and, to delegate. And I had always been because that's how it was at my job. I had to do all of the things. They relied on me to do all of the things. I didn't have anyone that I could give stuff to help me. And so learning to do that was huge too, to learn to say, okay, I've got these writers, I can give them things, and then trusting them to do it and do a good job and training them on how to do it properly. That took a lot for me because I kept thinking, oh, I've got to do it. I've got to do it so it's done the right way, but sometimes you have to just trust that other people can do that too. So,
I think we were trained to be that way from the time we were young. When you get a job, nobody says, hey, we're going to pay you this much, but if you want to find someone else and train them and pay them less, you don't have to do anything. Like they don't teach us that. And in fact, I think you'd be fired from a company if they found out you were outsourcing your work, right? So we don't have that business mindset. I remember a conversation where you and I had a strategy call, and we literally did the math to figure out what it was going to take for you, in fact, to walk away, for you to be able to start a business that's profitable. Can you talk about how that influenced your decision, not only to leave your job, but also how it gave you confidence that you could leave your job and make more money in the end?
Yeah, so you really helped me during that call figure out like what I'm worth, which was kind of a weird thing for me because when you have a regular job, nobody asks you what you're worth. They just give you your money and they give you what they think you're worth. But it was interesting to figure out like what I was worth and what I was capable of doing, and what that translated into as far as how much work I needed to do, and like the kind of jobs I could push off and versus keep for myself. And I think that was really eye-opening to me to say, well, if it takes me this long to do this thing and I can give this other thing to someone else, then I can be making this much money. And this is more than what I need to be able to quit. So if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Because when you think about the one thing I'll say is it's interesting how somebody tells us what we're worth and we go, okay. And then they tell us how we can go about making more money. Like, well, the best will always get the best raises. So you go out there and you try to be the best. And then they come back and lo and behold, you didn't get the raise or you didn't get what you think you would. Knowing those numbers, knowing that if I stayed at this job another 30 years, here's my top. Here's where I might be able to get to after working for the next 30 years, taking 1, 2, 3 weeks of vacation a year, and that's it. If we do the same math, which Jennifer and I did in a strategy call, not only were we able to figure out exactly what it was going to take, but I think it was eye-opening, and it is to most people, that, hey, I could actually work less, make more money, and have all this freedom. We also, in your strategy call, came up with some new ideas for you as well, which is something I'd like to talk about, right? So we all think very straight line, narrow focus to, okay, this is what I do. I'm a web developer. I'm a content writer. I'm a this or I'm a that. So this is all I can do. When we opened your mind to the idea that you could bring in other people with different skill sets than you, or with similar skill sets than you, what happened? Like what changed in your head, and what kind of thoughts? Because there's something big you're on the cusp of doing that I'm not going to share, but you can if you want. That's really exciting.
Yeah. So being a fiction writer, it can be really hard to make money, but it's something that I really, really love doing. But there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of authors. And Lisa, during our strategy session, really helped me find this path where I got to do what I love to do and what I was good at doing, and bring them together into one thing that really opened up a whole new door for something I had never even thought of before. So that was pretty awesome. So I've been working on that, and it's actually a project to help other authors or other would-be authors learn how to do certain things in regard to writing certain science fiction. And she kind of pointed me that direction, and then all of these other ideas started coming. It was like the floodgates opened. And I started seeing all of these possibilities where I didn't see them before. And the funny thing is that now that my brain has made that switch from, this is what you do every day for your job, to this is what you can do now. These are things that are possible, is that like everywhere I look now, I get ideas. I see, oh, I could do this too, and I could do this too. So staying focused is key, but, I'm also writing down all these other things that I can do in the future to help support my family while doing what I love. And that's really important to me.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love your story, because one of the things it reminds me of is once you go in a different direction, once you open your eyes to what's possible, there's no shortage of ways for you to make money working for yourself and doing your own thing. And since you're dedicating 8 hours of your life every single day to the man, when you're not doing that, you're likely able to get as much done in your own business in 4 or 5 hours instead of 8, because you're actually passionate, you're loving it. So now you have this great future, right? You have the ability to make money, right? And you get a start. I mean, obviously right now you're not making everything you'd want to make, but you see the light. You know that it's just a matter of time before the revenue starts coming in. The part that I think everyone struggles with is, oh my gosh, but I'm going to get back up to 8 hours a day very quickly. What mindset do you now have that says, no, that's never going to happen?
So like I said, I've always been a hard worker. I don't know how to explain it. I've been quick it generally takes me less time to do what it takes other people longer to do. And that's not always true because I am still learning a lot, about SEO and stuff, and I'm not as fast at that. But I find that if I'm given some tasks and they say, there's a motivation that you get knowing that you're like, okay, well, once I do these, I'm done for the day. And then I can do whatever I want. I can hang out with my kids, go to the park. So that helps me get done faster. And just, I don't know, when I'm working and I'm like, okay, well, when I had the job and I was like, I have to be here for 8 hours, you're like, I have to be here for 8 hours, whether I get this done or not. So might as well kind of take my time. And
yeah. And the more you do, the more they give you.
Yeah. And the more I do, that was true too.
Yeah.
If I got it done, they just give me more work. So
yeah. And you said it earlier too, though. Now you know that you're not going to continue to do all the work.
yeah.
You know that as your business grows, as it gets bigger, there's two things. Now, I know your story a little bit. The first one is you're going to outsource much of the work and oversee it in management. But two, you've come up with a whole new strategy. We've helped you envision this great strategy to where you have your eggs in more than one basket. And one of those baskets is super hands-off, passive, recurring income.
Mm-hmm.
And that's key as well. And you hear me preach that all the time. So you know that you're going to get that.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, kind of putting in the time and putting in the effort.
Right.
Yeah. I love that you've taken all this time off. It really illustrates. And by the way, when did you quit your job?
My last day was June 3rd.
Imagine how Jennifer knows that date by heart. That's how important of a date that is. So this is very fresh. This is literally less than 2 months old. And in those 2 months, how much living did you do?
A lot more than I had done in several years prior. We got to do we had a lot of time to make up for. So
yeah. And now I would guess now your husband's really on board.
Yeah.
So is the family, right? Because they know what life can be like if they give you that time you need to get your work done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Jennifer, I am going to open it up to anybody on here that has a question. If you guys have a question for Jennifer, please put it in the chat. She would love to answer anything you might be wondering, anything, that might help you if you're still in your job. If you're watching the replay and you have a question, go ahead and put it in anyway. We can always get that question answered for you in the Facebook group or something like that. So while people are thinking if they have any questions, Jennifer, let me kind of go to your future. So now that you're relieved of this job and you're able to do what you want to do on a regular basis, how do you feel? What's your stress level like?
It's a lot lower. Like it's amazing. I'm sick right now, so take this with a grain of salt. But like I've been getting healthier. I've been able to focus on my own health a lot more, which is something, when you're a busy parent and you're working all the time, is something that kind of goes on the back burner. So that's been good for me, is to be able to focus on my health. I've been able to help my kids more with school. With the stress level, the stress level has been a lot less, which has been nice. It's, I think everybody's noticed.
Well, and your parents are very supportive with this, which I think surprised you a little bit.
Yeah. My parents are very practical. They had me at a very young age, and they've always done the job, the job thing. And my dad actually has always had something on the side. So I think the entrepreneurial spirit is there in my family, because my dad, when I was younger, he had like a sports card and comic book store. And that was like his passion. So we went around and did all these, we traveled and did these shows and stuff in the spare time on the weekends, and we had the store. And then my dad and I actually have our own company that we started a couple years ago. So I think that to an extent, the entrepreneurial thing has always been in my head just because of him. So I wasn't surprised as much when he supported me. But my mom, I was really surprised, because she's always, well, this is what you got to do. And I've talked about quitting my job to her before, and she's always like, okay, well, make sure you've got another job lined up, the mom thing. But when it came down to it and I said, well, this is what I'm doing, they're both like, oh, okay, well, we know how hard you work, and we know that whatever you set your mind to, you'll be able to do. So that was really cool that they supported me through that.
Do you think maybe you changed your mindset a little bit? And so this time when, you were telling folks what you wanted to do, you had a succinct plan and you had the confidence, yeah. and you knew it was going to be okay. Do you think you were projecting that? And maybe that's why they felt better about it?
I do. And I think that a lot of it, to switch from, the job to being self-employed, having your own business, I think it's mostly mindset, really, because once I got there, it just, everything made sense, and everything that seemed impossible, I was like, oh, this isn't going to be bad at all. Like, this is, I know what I need to do now. It just, I think we're so ingrained from even a young age to think that this is what you're supposed to do, and this is the only path you're supposed to take, and everybody hates their job, and you just have to deal with it. That's just being an adult. And just to be able to switch that thinking into going, I don't have to do this, I can do this instead. And that's actually something really important for me to show my kids too. That was a big part of my decision too, is I didn't want my kids to grow up thinking that they had to do something they hated every day. Like, who wants to look forward to that,
Yeah. So if that's what it takes to adult, you're done adulting, right?
Yeah.
There's no more fun. We do have a question someone asked me privately, and the question is, were you nervous about the money, or did you save up money to do this, or how did you make that work?
So I do have savings. And yes, I'm also nervous because I have the money in savings. I don't want to spend it, because we actually saved that money for the purpose of remodeling our house. So it's there. I've been able to not touch it so far. So it's been a couple of months. We've made smart decisions thinking about, what we can cut back on, and, but we didn't want to sacrifice our enjoyment of life. So we actually haven't really cut back on that.
Well, I mean, the good news is that I think that also makes it a motivator too, right? I've got my security, because I remember when I got laid off and I made the decision not to find another job, I had severance, and that made it feel safer. I have money coming in so I could focus on the business. And I did like you did. I didn't spend that, and I put it to the side just in case. And as they say, the rest is history, right? I never needed ever to get another job. So that's a good thing, to help answer that question. If you have some money set aside, that's great, but you have to use it as a motivator to say, no, that's there in case there's a tough month or two as we do this, but it's not there to support me while I'm doing it, right?
Right.
Because we need that motivation to get up every morning and do what it takes to bring money in?
Yeah.
Good question. We're coming close on time. So, and I don't want to not, I always ask this question at the end. So I want to ask you the same thing. So think back to before and after, and then think about the people who are watching this. If they're on the fence, if they're not sure whether they're going to get involved with Agency Fast Track, if they're not sure whether they're going to go full force and be an entrepreneur, even with or without Agency Fast Track, what's the advice you would give someone who's on the fence?
One of the questions I asked myself when it really came down to the point where I needed to decide what to do was, am I ever going to get to live the life that I want to live while I'm working a job? And the answer was no. And, it was not able to give me what I wanted out of life. And I didn't want to, I call it, I call it being a corporate slave. I did not want to be a corporate slave until I was able to retire and my kids were grown and gone and busy with families of their own. I was like, it wasn't, the job was not fulfilling me in a way. It was money. That was it. That was the only thing it brought to the table for me. And I had to sit there and say, okay, well, is a steady paycheck from this thing that I hate doing and I don't feel appreciated worth it to not live the life that I want? And it absolutely was not. So that's, I think, what people have to ask themselves, is what I'm doing now going to let me live the life that I want? And if it's not, then you got to find something else. Because, like, what's the point at that point, right? Like, what is that? Like, that that's where I got stuck. I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. Like, why would I'm not here just to be someone's corporate slave. Like, I have kids and I want to go have fun and I want to be able to enjoy the life that I have. So being able to have the freedom to do that was just major for me, and realizing that what I was doing wasn't going to get me there. No matter how hard I worked every single day, it wasn't going to get me there. It was going to get someone else there. I was working so someone else could live the life that I wanted to live. And that just didn't make sense to me anymore.
Awesome. Hey, great answer. And I think there's some people out there right now that you're going to help change their lives, just like I help people. It feels really good. I appreciate your honest, candid hot seat today. To those you guys watching today, those you guys watching the replay, remember, Jennifer actually struggled with this a long time. And I never talk about regrets because we can't have regrets, right? We can only look forward. We can't look back. I'm sure she wishes she would have done this sooner. I know I wished I had done what I had done sooner, but you can't look back. But what you can do is kind of put a line in the sand today and say, you know what, no more. If I can't quit my job in 3 weeks, like Jennifer did, when can I? And what am I going to do? What kind of plan am I going to put together to do that? Because it's only with that pointed effort and the acknowledgement that, yes, I'm going to, not I want to, I dream of. I'm literally going to set a date for myself. And the funny thing is, something we didn't talk about, Jennifer and I talked about in our strategy session, the date. And she did have a plan, and she was going to quit 2 years later. Once it got in her head, she couldn't get it out. And I don't think she went, I think it was 4 or 5 months, and she quit her job because it was if she couldn't get to the 2 years. I was the same way. Once I had it in my head, I was going to quit. Well, thank goodness I got laid off before I had to quit. Yay. But you got to do it. And you hear me talk about these strategy sessions. Listen, I do that absolutely to help you guys come up with your own ideas. I didn't give Jennifer her ideas. I didn't tell her what to do. What I did was just ask her pointed questions about her life and what she wanted, and give her the encouragement and let her know that, you know, you're now part of Agency Fast Track family. She knows she's part of my family. She's been with, you know, with me in some capacity, you know, over the last 8 years. She just needed to know that she was capable of doing it. It doesn't matter if I think you're capable of doing it. It had to come from her, and it had to come from her family, her husband, for them to see that they would be supportive of her. And I'm excited to see you soar and to see everything you're going to do. We'll keep up with you. We'll check in with you. I'm sure everyone here would love that. So again, thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming today and being on our hot seat. Everyone else, if you want to quit your job, type I quit, whether you are ready to now or not. Put that in the comments, both on the Facebook group and here, wherever. And if you want a strategy session with me and you haven't had one yet, just type strategy and we'll make sure we get in touch, and we'll do a strategy call with you as well to see what's possible and how we can get you on the same trajectory. Thanks again, Jennifer. Everyone have a phenomenal week. Remember, to change your business, you first start by changing your mind. We'll see you next week.